First, let's start with this case. I, 29F, have 4 siblings, all adults. My dad, 63, and my oldest brother, Cole, 35, live in Asia, while the rest of our family resides in Germany. Recently, my grandmother in Germany passed away, so we all made arrangements to attend her funeral. I've never been particularly close to Cole, but recently we started spending more time together, which I've enjoyed. When we were booking the flights, I made it clear that I prefer sitting alone in a window seat. My dad loves aisle seats, and Cole also prefers a window seat. While I didn't mind spending time together during the trip, I don't consider sitting in cramped airplane seats on a red-eye flight to be quality time, so I wanted my own space. Cole, however, felt differently. He was furious and insisted that as a family, we should sit together. I reiterated my preference, but at the check-in counter, Cole interrupted and told the airline employee that we'd be sitting together, with him taking the middle seat. I reluctantly gave in. On the plane, I put my elbow on the armrest, and Cole nudged it off, chuckling and saying, "According to flight etiquette, the middle seat gets both armrests, haha." For context, he's not exactly a stickler for etiquette, so this felt particularly annoying. Overall, the flight wasn't horrible, but sitting with Cole was less comfortable than traveling next to strangers, as I usually do. The funeral itself was beautiful, and we had a nice time with family. On the way back, I again made it clear that I wanted to sit alone. This time, my dad didn't care about sitting together, but Cole once again insisted that we should. At the check-in counter, I stood firm and asked for a separate seat. Cole and my dad ended up seated together with Cole in the middle and my dad in the aisle. Before boarding, Cole called me a traitor multiple times. I ignored him. I ended up having a lovely flight back home. The middle seat next to me was unoccupied, so I had extra space. After landing, we shared a taxi home, and I mentioned I had a good flight. Cole snapped that his flight was awful because the person in the window seat was loud, irritating, and took up a lot of space. He gave me a dirty look, clearly blaming me for his discomfort. Later that evening, Cole sent me a text, saying I didn't appreciate his sacrifice of sitting in the middle seat earlier, and that I valued my comfort over family relationships. He accused me of rubbing my positive flight experience in his face while he had the worst flight of his life. Now I'm upset and frustrated. I want to repair our relationship, but his behavior, insisting on sitting together, blaming me for his bad experience and guilt-tripping me, makes me feel pushed away. Does traveling together as a family mean we must sit together? Am I missing something here? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. You're an adult, and your brother doesn't get to pick your seat for you. But just as a PSA, the middle seat does get both the middle armrests. If both the window person and the aisle person choose to use both of their armrests, then they've removed all the armrests from the middle seat, and now a middle seat sucks even more. The window seat gets one armrest and a window, the aisle seat gets one armrest and the ability to use the bathroom without asking others to move. The middle seat gets 2 armrests. That's how planes work. You're not in the wrong. He's baiting you. He didn't want to sit next to you to work on his relationship with you. He wanted to sit next to you to annoy you for the entire flight. You're not in the wrong. Obviously, you're not the idiot for choosing your own seat. I'm guessing you wouldn't have an issue sitting next to him if he didn't bother you during the flight. But if your preference is strangers, then he clearly wants to chat or play cribbage or something. You are allowed to want peace and quiet and not to interact with people, even when they are your family on a family trip. If sitting by strangers is the only way you can get quiet time to recharge, then it's Cole's fault that you are sitting away from the family. He's also a major idiot for escalating a disagreement about something as silly as airplane seats to you. Value your comfort over personal relationships and the needs of other people. Calm down, man. It's an airplane ride, not a personal attack. Geez Louise. Also, his sacrifice to sit in the middle is just dumb. He chose to sit in the middle. You didn't ask or want that. Why would you be expected to appreciate his stupid choice? He can't be both the instigator and the martyr. That's not how it works. P.S. He is absolutely right about the middle seat getting both armrests, though. His other behavior is dumb, but he's dead on about the armrests, and I will die on that hill. Next up, I, 55F, am married to my husband, who is 72. There's a 17-year age difference between us, and he has adult children in their 30s. Unfortunately, my relationship with his kids is far from positive. I find them to be disrespectful, entitled, and lacking basic manners. They grew up spoiled and are generally difficult to deal with. My husband has done well for himself financially. He owned and sold his own company, so he has a significant amount of money. Whenever his kids visit, the focus is always on his will and how the money will be divided. It's incredibly frustrating because they don't seem to visit out of genuine care for their father. It's always about what they stand to gain. Recently, my husband had surgery, and instead of showing concern for his health, one of his kids visited while he was still groggy from pain medication to press him about the will. I was furious and immediately kicked him out. After this, I sent a message to all of his children, letting them know they were banned from our home until my husband had fully recovered. I plan to discuss the situation with him when he's feeling better to decide if the ban should remain in place. I know he's also fed up with their behavior, but I want him to make that decision when he's not in a vulnerable state. His kids are now furious with me for banning them from the family home, and have called me all kinds of nasty creative names. Am I wrong for setting this boundary to protect my husband while he recovers? Or am I overstepping by banning his children from the house? Let's start judging. If my kids only came to visit me to discuss my will, especially after I had surgery and am not 100% mentally acute, you're damn right, I would want them banned from my home. Seeing as how he does not have his full faculties, she banned them until he was fully cognizant and stated it would be on him to decide. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Then, when back to full mental capacity, I would change my will and let them know their greed is why they are getting $1 only. I feel terrible for this man for having such ungrateful kids. OP is you're not in the wrong. Everyone sucks. They lived a whole life together before you were involved with this man. It's not your place to mediate the relationship between your husband and his adult children unless you want to be seen as a pariah. My grandfather's third wife was pretty controlling of his relationships with his kids, and it really screwed things up as he aged. They really need to get their act together, though, his kids, 'cause that money is not theirs. It's his. But it's also not yours. Banning them from seeing their dad isn't it, though? I reserve judgment on that one. There is just too many things and history that could completely change the situation. For example, maybe the father is the reason why the relationship between him and his kids is strained, and he tried to use the will and money against them. Then, of course, I would understand why the kids don't come often outside of having a discussion about the will. With the difference in age, of course people will jump at the possibility that OP is a gold digger and that she is the reason why there is conflict about the will. This might or might not be true. Yes, it looked bad that the kids didn't visit him at the hospital, but were they made aware of it? Were they in a position to visit him? What kind of surgery it was? There is a big difference between he get a tumor removed and he got his nose done. But with all that said, you're not in the wrong for banning them from the home temporarily if he is on painkiller, and the surgery was a big deal. No matter if you're in the wrong, in the bigger overall picture or not, protecting your husband while he is medically in a weak spot is the right thing to do. Next up, yesterday I did my mom's 56F makeup just for fun. She loved how I was able to cover her dark spots and asked what product I used. I explained it was a color corrector I bought in Korea. She seemed really interested and asked me to teach her how to use it, saying she wanted to incorporate it into her routine. I took the time to explain how each color works to correct different skin concerns and mentioned that I used the peach shade to cover her dark spots. Then she told me, I'm going to use it tomorrow before church. I immediately said, please wake me up and let me put it on you. I was nervous because she has a history of using my makeup without asking and often misuses or damages my products. I told her I'd rather she not use it at all unless I was there to supervise. As I went to bed, I considered hiding the color corrector to make sure she wouldn't use it without me. But in the end, I decided to trust her and hoped she'd respect my request. The next morning, I woke up to find her already rummaging through my makeup. When I asked, "Did you already use my color corrector?" she casually replied, "Yeah." I immediately checked the product and was horrified. She had done exactly what I was worried about. She used way too much, leaving 2 huge craters in the product. She mixed the green and peach colors together, turning the whole thing into a muddy mess. The green is meant to counteract redness, and the peach is for dark spots. I had only used the peach shade on her the day before, and the product is clearly separated into distinct sections. It was obvious I hadn't been mixing the colors. I asked her why she ignored my instructions and used it without waking me up. She claimed she tried to wake me, but I didn't respond, so she went ahead and used it anyway. I told her, "If I didn't respond, you should have put it down. How am I supposed to use this now?" Her response? "You're overreacting." Then, she had the nerve to demand more of my products before leaving for church. I was so upset that I told her to leave my room and kicked her out. She yelled at me, called me dramatic, and slammed my door on her way out. I spent the rest of the morning crying in frustration. She saw me use the product correctly the day before, and even had me explain how it works. I never even touched the green shade while applying it to her face, so why did she think mixing them was a good idea? The product is clearly designed to keep the colors separate, yet she completely disregarded that. Am I wrong for being so upset about this? I feel like my mom didn't respect my boundaries or the effort I put into my things, but maybe I'm overreacting. Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. She needs to pay you back the cost of everything she ruined. Because it sounds like she wouldn't know what to buy to replace it. And unfortunately, you're going to have to keep all of your makeup in a bag that stays in your room or somewhere she can't find it. It might help to go to the beauty store together and have an employee there explain and demo color correctors for her. And she can buy one for herself with her own money if she likes it. Maybe hearing the proper way to use a product like that from another adult that isn't her daughter would stick a bit better. Either way, she isn't entitled to your belongings that you bought and paid for, and she needs to learn that. I cringe on your behalf about the mixing colors in the palette and incorrect use. I too would be pissed if anyone handled my very expensive makeup that way. I'm fussy over brands. Is it a case of you only need to scrape off the top mixed bit of the color, or is it a creamier color corrector that she went overkill on and is not salvageable? Your mom crossed a boundary that you are allowed to have, so for not letting your mom use your makeup, you're not in the wrong. You probably need to clear the air chat, as acting out of anger wasn't great either. When doing that, remind your mom it isn't recommended to share makeup for hygiene reasons. You're not in the wrong. Your mother deliberately broke her word to you and used your stuff, which she had no right to. She basically stole from you, and on top of that, she ruined the product and is now responsible for making you whole, i.e., replacing your cosmetics. These are basic lessons that young children are able to understand. If you live with her, buy a lockbox and keep your products in there so she doesn't bust into them in the future. There are even makeup-specific boxes with key locks. And also, try to move out as soon as you can. If you're just visiting, keep a luggage lock and keep your stuff locked up. Either way, when she inevitably gets mad because you locked her out of your stuff, remind her that this is the consequence of her actions. You can't treat her like a trusted adult if she insists on acting like a greedy child. Next up, my partner and I have 4 children between us: F14, M13, M11, F10, and F8. One of our major house rules is that no child has unmonitored social media access before the age of 16. Currently, F14 and M13 have accounts on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Discord, while the younger kids only use the kid-friendly version of Facebook Messenger. Additionally, F14 is part of an online gaming community for a specific game. To ensure safety, we require the kids to provide us with their social media login information so we can monitor their messages, posts, and friends lists. This isn't about spying on them, but rather about ensuring nothing inappropriate or dangerous is happening. While I'm not a fan of kids using social media in general, I think it's better to teach them how to navigate it safely rather than banning it outright in today's world. Recently, I realized that F14 has a loophole in this system. Her native language is Russian, and because most of her school friends and gaming contacts are also Russian-speaking, around 70% of her online activity is not in English. None of us speak Russian, except for her late mother's mother, who isn't part of this situation. While we can use Google Translate for Facebook posts and messages, the live chat on her gaming site is essentially unmonitorable. This concerns me deeply because it means she could be talking to anyone about anything without us knowing. It's not about mistrusting her, but about ensuring her safety, and it's much easier to hide inappropriate activity when no one else can understand what's being said. I suggested a compromise. If F14 teaches M13 Russian, he could help us translate and provide insight into her online activity. However, F14 said it would be too difficult and refused. I feel that if she's unwilling to cooperate, she shouldn't be allowed on the gaming site. My partner disagrees. He argues that speaking Russian is an important connection to her birth culture, and barring her from the gaming site would feel like cutting off a link to that culture. He compared it to telling her she couldn't talk to her grandmother or friends in Russian, which isn't what I'm suggesting. I see a big difference between chatting with friends and family and communicating with strangers online in a way that no one else in the household can monitor. We've been arguing about this for days, and I feel strongly that allowing her unmonitored access to this gaming site is unsafe and creates a double standard for our household rules. Am I wrong for wanting to bar her from the gaming site if she refuses to help us bridge the language gap? Is this really about her cultural connection? Or is it about maintaining consistent and safe boundaries for all of our kids? Let's start judging. You're in the wrong. WTF? Calm down. You're on a power trip and upset that you can't control your stepdaughter, so you're trying to recruit your son into learning a language, not for his own good of being bilingual, but so that he can spy on your husband's daughter and report back to you. And now you're mad that a 14-year won't take on the responsibility of teaching your child, who's a year or so less than them, a whole nother language that she grew up with, whereas your son didn't. Get a pet, pick up a hobby or something to be productive, and leave her TF alone. You're in the wrong. You don't trust your kids, obviously, and try to hide it behind the concerned mother picture. Teach your kids about internet dangers, holding their boundaries, and let them know that if they ever have questions or are unsure or feel uncomfortable, to come to you. Total supervision and reading private messages is just a no-go. Furthermore, wanting to ban someone from speaking a language is insane, and instead of just putting in the effort yourself, you want to recruit another of your kids for it. They will soon learn how to hide things from you because you are teaching them you neither trust them nor respect their privacy. You're in the wrong. I'm assuming that you have found nothing worrying or inappropriate with her other online accounts, right? More than likely, that is also the case for her gaming site. If you're that worried about what she's saying, I suggest you or your husband learn Russian. Seeing that he isn't concerned, you need to drop it. Also, you're asking her to teach your son Russian so that he can spy on her. If that's not idiot behavior, then I don't know what is.